What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello, my name is Erica. It's so good to have you, and if you are not new, welcome back to the channel. I'm gonna guess most of you guys follow me for my fitness content, but a large part of my life is actually books and reading. I share a lot of this on my Instagram stories specifically, and I've also posted some YouTube shorts, so if you've seen them, maybe this isn't as much of a surprise. I've also made a couple booktube videos in the past, and those are on my channel as well. But I've been getting a lot of requests to share more book content with you guys, and I love watching booktube. So today I took to my Instagram stories, I polled you guys and I asked, what are your most recent 5-star reads? And in today's video we are going to read some of your guys' 5-star reads. My most recent 5-star read was Magnolia Park's Into the Dark, which is the last installment of the Magnolia portion of Magnolia Parks. I just feel like the way that she unpacked Magnolia's grief and also the things that happened with Magnolia's family, her parents. There was so much emotional depth to this book and things that transpired. I loved the relationship of Magnolia and Bridget. I'm not going to talk too much about this book, but I loved this series. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And if you haven't read it, go read it because it is a 5-star series in my eyes. But like I said, I took to the polls on Instagram, and I'm going to pop some of the answers up on the screen because you guys came through with a lot of good recommendations. But when I tell you one of the most popular responses, if not the most popular response to that question, was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. So what did I do? I obviously went to Amazon, I ordered it, and I started this last night. I am currently 85 pages in and loving it, but a little bit too early to really get the full sense of what the plot's going to be. It is a historical fiction. I think there's probably some romance in here, but again, it's a little too early to tell. So far, I really like the writing style. I love any sort of historical book. Personally, I like things that are set in like the 1800s, 1900s, so that is a bonus for me. So in this video, we are going to read The Nightingale as well as a couple other books that I got recommended from you guys on Instagram. So without further ado, let's get into the video of me reading your guys' 5-star reads. Okay, you guys, it is now, I think, a day later since a day and a half since I started reading this book. So I started reading this in the evening, and I would say I'm like 2/3 done, so I'm getting through it. It is a longer book, but it's surprisingly like pretty fast-paced. We'll get into why I say surprisingly, but so far I'm really enjoying it. First things first, I said, I think last time I spoke to you guys, I wasn't sure if there was going to be a lot of romance in this book. There is hints of romance, but it's definitely heavy on the literary fiction component. It talks a lot about the war. It's basically just recounting the lives of two sisters in World War I and their experience. This is just editing me coming in here to say that this entire video I'm gonna say World War I, and I actually mean World War II. Clearly I'm not a history buff and I'm learning, but I just wanted to say that. We're talking about World War II, not World War I. One of them is a mother, one of them is like 18 to like 20 throughout the book. So it basically goes through, I think like 3 or 4 years of their lives during the war, and it's very graphic. There's a lot of very awful things that happen to them, and it's interesting because the way that Kristen Hanna kind of explains some of these more graphic things, she explains them so quickly and almost like not nonchalant, but she doesn't dwell on them. And at first I was like, that's kind of weird that she doesn't explain them in more detail, and then it kind of clicked to me that the women in the story have experienced so much tragedy and hardship at this point that the things that are occurring to them on a daily basis just don't feel that jarring anymore, or they're probably very numb to it, and so they kind of just explain it in a very precise, non-emotional way. So I thought that part of the story was very interesting. There's so much that unfolds. Like the story itself, Isabel, one of the girls that we're following, her story is so inspiring and brave, and I appreciate that. And then same thing with Vienne. I think I always say her name wrong. Yeah, Vienne. I thought it was Vivian for a while, but I'm pretty sure it's Vienne. Anyways, the second sister, who's the mother, also ends up doing some things that are very brave, endures a lot of tragedy. There is a lot of death in this book. It is gory at times, so warning if you haven't read this book and you're not someone that can handle that kind of thing, I maybe wouldn't read it. But I found it so touching and jarring at times. Like I've said, I am excited to see where it ends up. I have a feeling, just based off of like the first chapter of this book, how it might wrap up, but we'll see. But so far I'm really enjoying it, and I would definitely recommend this book if you're someone that's into historical fiction, or even if you're not and you're just looking for something different to read. This is a really great book. We are back. I feel like it's been a minute since I've given you guys any sort of an update. I actually finished this book 2 days ago, I want to say, and it took me like a minute to fully process everything that I read and come to a conclusion on what I wanted to rate it. But I am happy to announce that I did rate this book a 5-star, which is kind of crazy being the first book in this video, reading your guys' 5-star reads, that I ended up with a 5-star of my own. But we did it, and I wanted to unpack why I gave it a 5-star and then talk to you about the next book I'm going to be reading. So like I said in the last couple of clips, this book is a historical fiction about 2 sisters in World War I. And I never know in these videos how much plot to give you guys, because I don't want to give you any spoilers. So we'll leave it pretty brief. It follows 2 sisters during World War I. One of them is a mother. It kind of recounts her experience having her husband go off to war and taking care of her kids and her friends and family, and her younger sister, who is kind of in different cities at times, leading a rebellion group through World War I, trying to save French soldiers. It's very, very interesting. There's a lot of death in this book. I think I said this before. Lots of grief, lots of very heavy topics. So again, just warning if you are thinking about reading this book and you're not good with death, topics such as abuse, guns, violence, gore, I wouldn't recommend reading this book. But I think that it's a necessary component to a book that's covering World War I, obviously, to make it realistic and to really give us a sense of what it felt like to live in that time. I really liked the writing style in this book, and something that I appreciated that Chris and Hannah did really well is sometimes I find in books like a 30-minute window will be dragged on for chapters and chapters and chapters. She covers years in this book, and it's done very methodically and not in a way where you feel like things are rushed. You get enough detail, but then we're moving on to the next scene. There was a little bit of romance in this book, very, very small amounts, but it mostly focused on the family relationships and the friendships that kind of turn into family. I may have said this in my last clip, but I really appreciated how she unpacked the really traumatic experiences in a way that was very believable. These characters are experiencing so much trauma, so much death, so much darkness at this time in their lives, and they don't really dwell on it in the book. It's almost like, okay, yeah, I saw this horrible thing happen, we're moving on, I've got other things to focus on, I need to take care of my kids, I need to survive the next day. And at first it felt to me like she was brushing it off, and then I realized, oh no, that's just the mentality that these women were in back in the day, because they couldn't stop and think about something, they couldn't stop and grieve, they had to worry about putting the next meal on the table or surviving the next brutal winter, if that makes sense. So ultimately, loved this book, 5-star. It was definitely something very different than what I've read recently, so I appreciated that little palette cleanser, even though it was a very heavy palette cleanser. And now, moving into the next book that you guys have recommended for me. I posted this on my story when I started reading it, and everyone was like, oh my god, I loved that book. So we are now reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, is how you say it, I think. And I started this yesterday, and I'm already like halfway through, because I spent a lot of time outside by the pool yesterday and I just got through quite a lot of this book. So this is going to be the next one. You guys have rated this 5-star, and I've also seen a lot of people on TikTok and YouTube rate this a 5-star, so I was really interested to get into it. So in this book we are following Sam and Sophie, who are childhood friends that were then estranged and then kind of came back together, and they are both in the computer programming world, and they decide to create a game together, and it kind of just goes through their childhood. You get kind of some flashbacks from when they first met, the things that they went through together, things that they went through apart from each other, how they were raised, and how all of those things kind of combine into creating the games that they make together. So it's very interesting. It is in third person. I know not everyone loves reading in third person. I will say it took me a little bit to get into the language of this book because the two characters are very intelligent. They both went to like Harvard and schools of that nature, and so they were speaking in just very, not scientific, but just very intelligent terminology and diction, and it took me a little bit to get into that coming from a book that was set in like World War I. But nonetheless, I'm very much enjoying this book so far. I don't know if it'll be a 5-star for me. I said that about the last one, but so far it is very interesting. I'm getting through it really quickly, and it's a very different concept than anything I've read before. I also really enjoy the characters. They're very unique. We're gonna keep reading. Like I said, I'm halfway through. So far, so good. Let's roll the footage of me reading a little bit more of this book and hopefully finishing it. Alright, it is time for an update on tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I did in fact finish this book. I actually finished it like 2 days ago, which seems to be a theme of me needing a couple days to just sit with it, really process how I feel, and then give you guys my final rating. So this book was way different than I anticipated. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but what I got was nothing that my brain could have imagined, which I liked. It was a very unique book, I'll put it that way. And when I tell you this book took every turn imaginable, it did. I didn't see really anything coming, and there was just so many things, bombs that got dropped on you where you were just like, wait, did she just say what I think she just said? Did that really just happen? So yeah, if you like a book full of surprises, you will definitely like this book. I ended up rating this book a 3.75 out of 5. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, because I really did enjoy it. However, I don't feel like I really appreciated it in the way that maybe someone in the coding industry or like the computer science industry might appreciate it. I feel like there was a lot of metaphors also that I didn't fully understand. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to really understand what was going on, but there was just a lot of things that were said where I was like, I feel like there's a deeper meaning to this than it's just not registering for me. So I'm curious if anyone else who's read this book feels that way. There was very small amounts of romance in this book, but it definitely was a literary fiction. I really enjoyed the way that she was able to transport us through time, similar to the Nightingale. This book covers many years in the course of the entire book, whereas, for example, other books cover, like I said before, a week in one book. So it's interesting when an author is able to take you from 6 months ago to 5 years ago and like back and forth and not confuse you, number one, and also number two, to not feel like they're dragging on explaining something that happened 5 years ago. It was very concise and there for a reason, and then we moved on from it, if that makes sense. So ultimately, I would recommend this book if you're looking for something different and just like a palate cleanser, although it was an in-depth palate cleanser. It's not a short book and it does require some brain power, but it was very interesting, very different from anything I've ever read, and I really appreciated it. Now, on to our next read, which is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I asked you guys again what books to read, and a lot of you guys said that you love Emily Henry and specifically Happy Place. I actually read Beach Read, which was my first Emily Henry book, just this past month, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. So I'm excited to read this one, and one of the things that I've learned about myself recently is that I like a fake dating trope, and this book is kind of a fake dating trope. I mean, they're like fake engaged, which it says that on the back, so that's not a spoiler. I'm not going to go too in-depth, and I really just started it. I'm only 80 pages in. I started it last night, and so far so good. I really enjoy Emily Henry's writing style. It's very easy to digest, and it's also very quotable. I know a lot of people love quotes from book lovers and Beach Read and all the things, and I feel like this book's also going to have a lot of quotes that are quotable. Obviously, that's what quotable means. This book is set in Maine, I believe, in a little cottage, like a beach town, and it's a group of friends that's been going back to the cottage every summer, and something's happened this summer where they may not be able to go back, and the main character Harriet and her fiance Wynne are there, and it's just this whole kind of fake engagement trope. And that's all pretty much I have so far. I again don't know too much else as to what's going on in this book, and I just love her covers. It's so giving summer right now, so I love that. A lot of you guys have rated this book a 5 stars, so we will see what my thoughts are, but let's get to reading Happy Place by Emily Henry. Alright, we are back with an update on Happy Place because I actually finished this book. I finished it very quickly in pretty much like 2 days, I think, and I did really enjoy it. However, it's not a 5-star in my opinion. I can see why a lot of you guys would rate it as a 5-star. It just didn't hit as a 5-star for me, and I feel like there's a couple different reasons. I found a lot of things that happened in this book to be quite predictable. I don't know, I like to be surprised. There definitely were things that surprised me towards the end. However, a lot of the plot and kind of how it ended was predictable to me. And I know that's the case for a lot of romance novels, so I'm not like saying Emily Henry is the one that's predictable. A lot of romance novels, we kind of know going into it somewhat that there's going to be a happy ending, but I just found some of the things that occurred were predictable, and I feel like I've said that 10 million times now. But let's unpack it a little bit. Like I said, wasn't a 5-star. I'm gonna give it a 3.75. I really liked it up until like I would say 75% of it I really enjoyed. It wasn't that I didn't like the end. I just feel like it was almost to tie it with a bow and give you this like picture perfect thing, if that makes sense. 75% of it, really liked it, and I was like, ooh, this, I could see why this is a 5-star. I really like how Emily Henry portrayed the feeling of like being without someone that you feel is truly your soulmate, and the things that she wrote in there that kind of expressed how the characters felt really hit home, and like that yearning that you feel, that loss, was really relatable. I feel like a lot of us have gone through feelings like that, so I really appreciated her way of describing that and showing that in the characters in the book. I really enjoyed the banter in this book too. I thought it was really cute. I loved the fact that all of this kind of transpired in a weekend minus the flashbacks, and it kind of highlighted just the main 6 characters that were in the book, plus like parents and stuff, but mostly it highlighted those 6. Kind of kept it easy to digest. You weren't having to focus on too many plot lines at once, and there were some deeper themes in the book that, you know, I feel like she does tie into a lot of her books, whether it's depression or loss or divorce or anxiety. There's always typically something a little bit deeper with an Emily Henry book that you do get as a subplot, so I appreciated that as well. However, like I said, it just didn't sit as a 5-star for me. I would still highly recommend this book. I think it's a super easy, fast read, a very nice summer beach read. But yeah, it just wasn't a 5-star for me, but I appreciate the recommendation, and I do really enjoy Emily Henry's writing. And next up, we will be reading Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World earlier last month, absolutely loved it, and that was my first ever Abby Jimenez book, and I was hooked. I love that book. I rated it a 4.75, and I still think about it to this day. So I was really excited to read Yours Truly. This is part of a series, I believe, that are standalones in the series. So there's kind of cameos from characters from Part of Your World in this book, but you wouldn't have necessarily had to read Part of Your World in order to read and understand Yours Truly. At least that's what I am getting to up to this point. I started it last night and I'm already halfway through, and I'm really loving this book. I think I just like Abby Jimenez's writing style a little bit more than Emily Henry personally. They're both great authors, but I love the banter and the wit, and she does a really good job in this book of portraying what anxiety looks and feels like to someone. I don't want to give too much away in this book. I don't even want to give away like some of the main tropes because I hate it when people ruin books for me, but obviously it is a romance book, and it's about 2 doctors that work together, so there's like a workplace romance. I'm not going to give away one of the main tropes, but yeah, there is anxiety kind of portrayed in this book from one of the main characters, and I'm just really enjoying their relationship so far and the way that it's progressing. Like I said, I'm halfway through. I'm kind of anticipating like a 3rd act ball to drop at some point. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a breakup necessarily, but I feel like something's gonna happen in the third act. We'll see. So far I'm really loving it. I definitely will be picking up all of the rest after this one because I'm loving it so much, but stay tuned for my thoughts on yours truly. The time has come to review Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I just finished this and honestly it was better than Happy Place for sure, but still not a 5-star. But I can see again why you guys would love this book. And like I said in I think the last clip, I felt like at the beginning of this book it was giving me that 5-star feeling, and then unfortunately it kind of just lost me kind of like halfway through. I really loved the letters, the like texting and stuff at the beginning of this book. I thought it was so cute and just like I was giggling and like kicking my feet, you know, while I was reading it. And then as we got deeper into the book, it's not that I didn't like their relationship. I just don't love a miscommunication trope. It sometimes just like makes me want to rip my hair out, and a lot of this book has a miscommunication trope in it, and for that reason I just couldn't give it a 5-star. I will say this was definitely more surprising and unpredictable than Happy Place was, in my opinion. There were things that happened in this book where I was like, whoa, didn't see that coming. But there were also a couple things at the end that just felt super cliche, and I know it's a romance book, these things are bound to happen. I don't know, I'm just not the type that loves super cliche endings to books and things that feel very just like cheesy almost. So I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm not giving this book a 5-star. Now, Abby Jimenez, I love her writing. Her books have made me laugh out loud, which is not common for me as a reader, and I really appreciate the banter and the relationships within the books that I've read of hers so far, and just the character development. And I think I said this before, but I really appreciate that these books are standalones, interconnected, so you do get hints of characters from different books. So I loved that we saw the characters from Part of Your World in this book, little cameos, which was kind of fun. You get to have a little bit of a follow-up on what's going on in their lives a couple months down the road. But yeah, ultimately it was not a 5-star for me. I'm gonna give this one a 4-star. I still really liked it. In the first like half of the book, I was like, wow, I love this. I love, again, the text messaging and the letters. I thought that was so cute and different. And then the rest of the book was just kind of not my favorite. So 4-star. It's not a bad book by any means. I think it's a really easy read. I read this in under 2 days. It's also not crazy long. It's just under 400 pages with decently sized text. So keep that in mind. If you've never read anything by Abby Jimenez, I would highly recommend. Yeah, just not a 5-star for me, unfortunately. And with that, we are gonna wrap up today's video of me reading and rating your 5-star reads. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. All of these books were good books. By no means are they bad books. They're very easy reads. I think that was a common theme of this video, was just fast reads. I read all of these books in like 2 days, so that is a bonus if you're looking for an easy, quick summer read. Definitely check out the books that I mentioned in this video. If you've read any of these books, comment down below which one was your favorite, or if you have any book recommendations for me, also let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and let me know if you guys want more book content, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys.